Hello, and a massive welcome to this talk. This talk is called The Way of the Money Warrior, The Art of Money Self-Defense. And I'm going to start off talking about my money worry journey. And I have to put my hand up here and say that in the past, I've been quite a money warrior, but it really only got bad in 2010 when we arrived back in Heathrow after our wedding. So you can see a lovely picture of us getting married. We got married in South Africa, and we flew back from Johannesburg to London. And when we landed, I got up from my seat. I had pains in both of my calves, didn't think much about it, but then I passed out when I got off the plane. And when they got me to hospital, they found that I had two massive blood clots on my lungs. So obviously, this had a massive impact on us as a married couple. It's a real bugger, but it also had a massive impact on our money. So I was very lucky that I had savings. So and I was able to do a little bit of work, but I was pretty much disabled from working. I couldn't leave the flat, and this was really my first experience of serious, excessive negative money worry. And we were just getting back on our feet. And in 2016, my husband Paul had a work related breakdown. And what this meant was that I became the sole earner. And this really was a very worrying time, obviously, very worrying about him, but also very worrying financially. And the one belief that I had at that time was that we wouldn't survive financially. And you can see me sitting here. So obviously, we did survive. It was a false belief. But what I found is that those two experiences really helped me to put in place money habits and emotional and mental tools to help me to become more resilient in the face of stress. And ultimately, those experiences have really helped me to be sitting here with you, to be able to share through lived experience. And when I first wrote my M.A.T.S money course, which was in I think about 2007, I talked about building a bridge from where you are to where you want to be. And for me, that was working less in accounts and more doing the M.A.T.S money work. And my money worry journey has really helped me to build that bridge. So a little bit more about me. And then we'll move on. So I look at money and finance in a slightly different way to most people. My work journey started at about the age of 20 in South Africa. I got my first job and they put me through a bookkeeping to trial balance and balance sheet course. And at the same time, I joined up to do a year-long shiatsu course. And shiatsu is Japanese acupressure. And that meant I learned about meridians. I learned about energy, how the body worked. And I started doing the bookkeeping at my job. And I had a little mobile shiatsu practice. I used to go give my clients shiatsus at their home. And this passion and experience has lasted about 25 years. And I still continue to learn about both accounting and about healing. So the mix of those two things, as well as the fact that we got into financial difficulty when Paul had his breakdown, and I had to go and speak to all our creditors and so I really have a first-hand idea of what it is to really struggle financially. This combination of things really gives me a unique approach to helping people who are stuck in some way with money. So let's move on from talking about me. So in this talk, we are going to define worry. We're going to talk about the effects of negative worry on your brain, how dealing with your money worry will help your financial situation, which I'm sure you are wondering, what it looks like to be a money warrior, and the way that we can counter that with becoming a money warrior, which is WARRIOR. And I give you my 7 steps to becoming a money warrior, and then I'll talk you through recommended reads so that you can keep going with the journey. So a lot of the focus around money worry is how to deal with it on a practical level. And specifically with the last couple of years, with COVID and the cost of living crisis and everything that's going on, there's been a lot of information out there about how to deal with the practicalities of money. But the thing is that that doesn't help us on with our thoughts and our emotions. And in my work, I talk about the relationship with money, which is how you think, how you feel, how you talk, and how you act around money. And what I've learned is that you have to combine both the practical with the other aspects of money before you really empower yourself to move forward if you're stuck on some level. And so I'm going to show you in this talk that working on the emotional side of money is just as important, and how becoming a money warrior is about balancing the two. And I really, really think that really is key when you are stuck, because often being stuck involves a subconscious level, which is both a mental belief and an emotion. So by doing work on both of those levels, you really are able to move forward powerfully. So this is a great quote from Dr. Martin Rosman. Worry is the type of thinking in which we turn knotty problems over and over in our minds. It helps us to examine different angles and perspectives so that we can uncover solutions that are not immediately apparent. This is the good kind of worry. Unfortunately, worry can also become a destructive mental habit of repetitive negative self-suggestion that creates stress and can lead to chronic anxiety and depression. So I just want to bring your attention to 2 things in this quote. The first is that, yes, there is a good kind of worry, and worry is a normal human emotion. I'm going to talk more about this in the next slide. And the second thing I want to bring your attention to is negative self-suggestion. Now, I know with me and worry in the past, it's felt like something I just have to deal with and get on with and just live with. But the fact that worry is self-suggestion really leads us to know that we have a lot more power over it than we think. And I hope that I'm going to be able to show you in this talk that you do have a lot more power over your mind and your emotions, and also your financial situation, than you think you do. So as I said, worry is a normal human emotion. All of the emotions are neither good nor bad. It's only when we get stuck in an emotion that we have trouble, which is why I talk about this affirmation: I allow and accept my emotions. So a lot of the work that I do with either my course and with my coaching is to help people to acknowledge that they, number one, do have emotions, but to really learn to deal with them and rewire some of those emotions. But just to say again, none of the emotions are good or bad, and just to really accept that you do have emotions. So we're going to talk now about the effects of excessive negative worry on your brain. And when you have this level of negative worry, you feel a lot more fearful. And like the man in the picture, you expect tigers to pop up from every corner. And this leaves you consistently feeling unsafe. So another great quote. The amygdala is responsible for our fight, flight, and freeze response. When the amygdala fires constantly, which is the case with negative beliefs, thoughts, and emotion, it severely limits our higher brain functions and our body health. So when the amygdala fires, It hijacks the prefrontal cortex, which is responsible for decision making, differentiating between good and bad, seeing future consequences, working towards defined goals, predicting outcomes of behavior, and more. So one of the tools that I go through in my Make Peace with Money course is something called emotional freedom technique, or tapping. And it's very, very good at calming the amygdala. So this quote is from one of the Ortners. There are two brothers and a sister who are doing a lot of work around tapping. And Alex Ortner has created a tapping solution planner, which I have. And this is one of the quotes out of that. But just to say that when we are in excessive levels of money worry, we go into fight, flight, and freeze. And this can paralyze us both mentally, emotionally, and physically. So it means that we don't end up taking any action. But it also impacts the front of the brain, which, like we say here, impacts our decision making, looking at future consequences, working towards defined goals. So so it really has quite a huge impact on our body and mind. And I also want to talk about our brainwaves or states. So when we have millions of cells in our brain, and when they fire, they create electrical activity, which is known as states or brainwaves. So most of the time we spend in beta. This is an active state of mind when we are thinking, we're planning, analyzing, assessing. And like I said, most of us spend most of our time in beta. There is also a more active state of the mind, which is called gamma. And this can be very good for learning, but is not a good state to be in for long periods of time. Really, the state that we want to be in more is alpha. And this is where your mind slows down out of thinking. You are relaxed and your mind doesn't jump from one thought to another. Your attention is in the present, not in the past or the future. You are more accepting and non-judgmental. So you can get into the state by doing things like going for a walk, or doing some yoga, or doing an activity that relaxes the body and the mind. And a lot of the work that I do in my course with the tools that I give are to help people to get into this alpha state of mind. So theta is a slower state of mind. And when you go into theta, you're in a much deeper meditative state. It can be a source of creativity, intuition, increased memory, concentration. And this is where self-healing happens. And I was reading a book, an article written by a sports psychologist a couple of days ago. And they said that the optimum state of mind for peak performance is somewhere between alpha and theta. And that is what they help their clients to access. Delta, most of us reach delta when we are in sleep. But if you are a Tibetan monk who's been meditating for years, you might be able to reach this state while awake. So this is a great diagram, or these are great diagrams because they show the impact of the brainwaves on our lives. So you can see the anxious mind has a lot of activity in beta, but not a lot of activity in alpha, theta, and delta. And the awakened mind has a lot of activity some activity in beta, some activity in alpha, and some activity in theta and delta. So for us mere mortals, we want to be somewhere between the anxious mind and the awakened mind. I think for most of us in our lives that we might get to the awakened mind, but it's more likely that we'll get somewhere in between the anxious mind and the awakened mind. And I'm just going to read this and then explain it. In the awakened mind, an alpha bridge is created because it bridges conscious mind frequencies of beta with the subconscious and unconscious mind frequencies of theta and delta. This allows a flow of consciousness integrating all levels of the mind. Now, this might sound like quite a mouthful, but what I find in my work is that often there are subconscious elements driving our financial behavior. And we have a goal that we're going for, but we get stuck. And this is the subconscious that gets in the way. And like I've said, through my work, I help people to get into alpha. And the more that you can get into alpha in your life, and the slower you can make your brain waves, the more you connect the conscious and the subconscious, and you create an awareness of things that are keeping you stuck. So our ultimate goal is to create that alpha bridge in our lives so that we can really move forward powerfully with all areas of our life. So I've talked about the different areas of the brain, and I've talked about the brain cells firing, but I just want to talk about the neurons, which are the brain cells, just quickly. So what you can see there is you can see a neuron, and at the end of it, you can see these little tentacle things. These are called dendrites, and they give information to other cells. And why this is important to you is that stress affects your dendrites. Basically, what happens is that when you're under stress, these little tentacles die, and they shrink and they die. But the good news is they do come back when you calm down. So there's no need to stress about that. And a great example of how frazzled dendrites affect us is, I don't know if you've ever watched one of the TV quiz shows. Now, in the UK, there is a show called Mastermind, which Paul and I watch. And the people who are answering the questions have to sit in a black chair, and they've got a spotlight ahead of them, and questions, easy and hard questions, are fired at them. And sometimes I can't answer any of the questions, but sometimes they can't answer the easy questions, and we're left shouting at the telly. So this is a great example of where their dendrites have affected their ability to think clearly. Another great example is I took 2 weeks off over Christmas, and when I broke up, I was really, really stressed. There's a lot of stuff going on. Work had been really busy. And every year over Christmas, we do a puzzle. And when I started to try and help Paul with a puzzle, couldn't see where the colors fitted. I couldn't get the pieces together the same color. I couldn't find where the shapes went. And it was a real hard work trying to do this puzzle. My brain was having to work really hard. And as I relaxed, we were having some good food. We had a nice time over Christmas. I wasn't working over that period. And as my mind relaxed, what I noticed was that very effortlessly and easily, my brain started showing me the different colors, the different shapes, and I found it a lot easier to slot in those puzzle pieces. So the big question is, how will dealing with your money worry help your financial situation? And I hope that I've showed you how how worry can impact your brain, and how it can not only impact the way you think, but also impact how you take action, but also impact your physical body as well. But the good news is that we can actually rewire our brains, which actually means we can change our minds. And what this means is that even if you're a chronic money worrier, like I was, and like I still am sometimes, what happens is that when you think the thoughts and feel the emotions, you build up neural pathways in your brain. And this then takes you on a cycle which keeps this automated. And while you can't take those neural pathways out of your brain, you can actually create new ones. So by creating new thoughts and new emotions, new experiences, you can build new neural pathways in your brains. I go into a lot more detail in my course, but the good news is that you can rewire your brain. And one of the books that I'm really excited about at the moment is a book called Bliss Brain by Dawson Church. And he says it's the neuroscience of remodeling your brain for resilience, creativity, and joy. I'm going to just read the slide and then talk through it. In his book, Bliss Brain, researcher and author Dawson Church talks about how in a short time we can produce change in our brains, which makes us calmer, happier, and more resilient. What can happen is that the stress circuits in our brain begin to get smaller, and the enlightenment circuits associated with joy, compassion, productivity, creativity get bigger. So obviously it's a big book, and using one slide for this won't do it justice. But what Dawson Church says that is in 8 weeks, we can change the way our brains work, dimming down how our brains deal with stress, and actually heightening our levels of creativity, compassion, productivity. And what I actually see in the work with the course and with my coaching clients is that when they deal with not only the money habits, but the mental and the emotional side, they get times when they're in a flow state. And I call this their zone of genius. My hubby gets really cross with me because he said it's all about being in flow. But that is the excitement about doing this work, is that our brains have this amazing capacity to help us. And what you can take away from this talk is that your brain is amazing, you are amazing, and you have such ability to deal with your challenges and your struggles more than you could ever realize. So I hope I've shown you that dealing with your money worry makes sense. Not only does it help you to think more clearly and encourage deeper creative thinking, it helps you to problem solve, helps you to have a better attention span, which is really important. And I've showed you with the puzzle example, solutions start to appear without having to force them. And I'm hugely passionate about working smarter, not harder, both in my accounting and in my Make Peace with Money. So this is really important for me. But also, once you start to deal with the money worry and also your money habits, you start to feel more confident and in control of your situation, which really helps you to move forward. And when you start to free up those higher brain capacities, this really can promote learning as well. So I know some of you might be thinking, oh, I do worry, but I'm not sure if I have excessive money worry. So I'm going to talk through what the factors are that exacerbate money worry. So there are 5 factors. They are focusing on the negative, money trauma and vicarious trauma, decision-making based on fear, living in a beta state, and not being present. The first, which is focusing on the negative, is all about our brains having a negativity bias. So when we were cavemen, this really kept us safe. But now in the modern world, if there are 5 positives and 1 negative, our brain tends to focus on the negative. And you can see how this can be very unhelpful with money worry. So what I tend to do, I'm going to talk about some of my meditations later, but I tend to ask people to focus on their money wins as well as their money worries, because what this does is it just changes the balance and helps us to focus more on the positive. And of course, with the last couple of years, there has been a lot of money trauma. And in money trauma, I talk about losing income. I talk about being ill, getting divorced, going into debt, anything that causes you a financial challenge. And what money trauma can do is leave us with beliefs and emotions that can keep us stuck. Often people just keep calm and carry on, which is often the British way. But money trauma can leave scars. And in my Make Peace with Money course, we do quite a lot of work around helping you deal with your money trauma so that you can move forward. But there is also something called vicarious trauma. And I'm sure you all agree that we get bombarded with really scary stories about what's happening financially, what's going to happen financially, what has happened to people on the news, on the internet. And vicarious trauma is a real thing, and it actually affects your brain in a very real way. And just to recognize that if you're taking in, if you watch the news every day, read newspapers, you're on the internet, that this is going to impact your level of money worry. And just to really control the amount of media that you take in. So another thing that can exacerbate money worry is decision making based on fear. And I'm going to tell my Bulb story here. We have been members of Bulb ever since we moved to Hertfordshire, which was about 4 or 5 years ago. And obviously they went bust. I think it was probably a year ago. And there's been a lot of fear around what was going to happen, what people should do, and the impact on the energy bills. And at one point, I was thinking about moving suppliers and going onto a fixed tariff, which would be a couple of £100 a month. But I listened to people like Martin Lewis, who were saying, don't worry, don't move, just keep calm. And we took all the advice about how to keep our house energy efficient. And we stuck with Bulb, and they have finally been bought by Octopus. And because we have taken all the actions on keeping our energy bills low, our direct debit is currently £77 a month, and we live in a house. So I think that shows how making a good decision can really help, but making a decision based on fear can really exacerbate your money worry. We also live in a very fast world, and everything gets faster and faster. But what this means is that we are constantly living in that beta state. And this is the state where ruminating and worrying becomes a common thing. So just to really tell you to slow down wherever you can, even if it's just in tiny, tiny ways, like stopping, looking at your computer screen for 5 minutes and taking 3 deep breaths. We'll talk about this in a bit. The last factor that really impacts money worry and excessive money worry is if we are spending a lot of time in the future. And I put my hand up here and say that I'm guilty of this. But the truth is that we cannot do anything when we are living mentally in the future. It is only by taking action in the present that we can do anything about our circumstance. So if you find yourself spending a lot of time in the future, thinking about all the worst case scenarios, I'm going to show you what you can do about this, but that might be a sign that you are have a lot of excessive money worry. Okay, so I've talked a lot about the worry and how it impacts our brain and our lives. And I've also talked about the good news that we can rewire our brains. So I've developed 7 steps which combine both the mental, the emotional, and the practical side of money work. And I'm calling this the way of the money warrior. And the money warrior is someone who takes a courageous stand to obtain some control of their money situation in a calm, disciplined, non-judgmental way, becoming resilient in the face of money stress. And you might be thinking at this point, blooming heck, that sounds like a really difficult thing to do. Kim, how do you think that I'm ever going to do that? But I want to draw your attention to the fact that you are here listening to this webinar, which means that you are courageous and that you are also starting to take some control of your money situation. So you are already on the path, the way of the money warrior. And also, I'm going to give you a lot of information that you can go away and use straight away to start to take control of your situation. So being a money warrior isn't all about fighting battles. It's mostly about defending yourself from money stress, and we all have a lot of that. So this is about deciding which battles are worth fighting, and ultimately, it's all about making peace with money, and that is all about dealing with your money habits, developing good money habits, understanding the subconscious things that drive you, healing those money traumas, and moving forward in a confident and courageous way. So, I've said before that we don't want to make decisions based on fear. Instead, what we want to do is we want to think strategically, weighing up all our options and advice. We want to be using our brain and our gut. So when we're in alpha, the brainwave, we are more intuitive, and we want to be using both our brain, our logic, and our intuition to help us make decisions. Sometimes those decisions aren't obvious, but by using our logic and our intuition, it can help us take that leap of faith and make decisions that are really good for us. So I'm going to take you through my 7 steps to becoming a money warrior. The first is money mindfulness. The next is clarity on your current situation. Make a plan, ask for help, put your plan into action, become adaptable to change, and keep working on those emotions. So step 1 is what I call money mindfulness. And I talk about this quite a lot in my course. Money mindfulness helps you to bring your mind out of a negative state of money worry. It brings you back into the present moment, which is the only place where you can take action. It also helps you to feel safe, even in the face of adversity and money stress. And I just want to tell you that with a lot of my coaching clients, I create what I call micro habits. And these are a selection of tiny steps which really help you to make big changes. I've been reading a book called Atomic Habits by James Clear. And he says, if you make 1% change in your life, it can really change the trajectory of your whole life. So what are my 5 steps to money mindfulness? Step 1 is to become aware when you start to worry. And awareness is the start of change. And we build a lot of awareness in my Make Peace with Money course. But you can start right here, right now. So when you find yourself worrying, I'd like you to say to yourself, either mentally or out aloud, I know that I'm worrying about money at the moment. You can also use the affirmation, I allow and accept my emotions. What this does is it just allows you to name the emotion, to become aware of it, to accept it, and it helps you to move through that emotion. If you verbalize that, it takes the thought to a different part of your brain, which is also really helpful. Step 2 is to disrupt the thought by taking 3 slow, deep breaths. You breathe in through the nose and out through the mouth. This is a seemingly tiny, tiny step, but I use it very effectively with my coaching clients. This is a really, really great way to calm your brain. And step 3, when you keep doing that deep breathing, keep focusing on the breath, focusing on the in-breath, focusing on the action of your chest. What you will find is your breathing will start to slow down, your brain will start to slow down, and it will bring your brain to the present, which is what we want. Step 4 is to reassure yourself that you are safe in this moment, and you can say, I am safe. And there's 2 things to say about this. Sometimes when we are excessively money worrying, it might be at 3 a.m, or it might be when we're at our desk worrying about something's going to happen with our job or on the weekend. And it might be that you actually are safe. in which case it's true and it will help your body to deeply relax. The second thing to say is that when you reassure yourself that you are safe, it helps your body mind to feel more relaxed. And the last step is to actively feel grateful that you are safe in this moment. Now, I know a lot of us can't call some of these emotions at will, but I'm going to really encourage you to start building that muscle. And I'm going to show you why this is important on the next slide. Feeling grateful can change your brain in 12 seconds. So if you have a look at these pictures from Dawson Church book, Bliss Brain, it shows two neurons there. And what happens in 12 seconds, if you look at the last slide, the neurons have actually connected together. So can you imagine if you do those 5 steps of money mindfulness, how this creates some cohesion and togetherness in your brain? So step 2 is all about getting clarity on your current situation. And I'll tell you now, unless you know where you are, both financially and in any other area of your life, it's very, very difficult to move forward. And I know that this step can be a really scary step. And some people prefer not to know and think that that makes them feel better. But I can tell you now that it doesn't, and can keep you stuck. So I'm going to encourage you to take your courage and start looking at all your costs, start looking at your income, start looking at your debts, and also encourage you to be not honest and non-judgmental. It doesn't help to beat yourself up for where you are. We all make choices. They are neither good nor bad. They are simply choices. And if you want help with doing this, I go into a lot of detail in the Make Peace with Money course on building clarity, financial clarity. I show you how to practically do this. And also we look at your big why, which is what is your reason, your big reason for doing the work. And that's something I would encourage you to think about now, because your big why will help you to think about your goals, the reason why you are on this webinar. Is it because you are in a challenging financial situation? Do you want to decrease your debt? Are you looking to save money for holidays? What is your why? What is your reason for being here? Step 3 is to make a plan. And this is a detailed action plan. So once you've got your big why, you can break your goals down. If debt is what you're looking to reduce, what is the amount of debt that you'd like to reduce? If you're looking to save, what is the level of saving that you need? What are you saving towards? And then start to think about what steps you need to take to achieve the goal. We definitely want to break things down to small, achievable steps. And we also want to have a look at the realistic time frame. If you are looking to become a millionaire in a year, it's highly unlikely unless you win the lottery, which I hope you do. And what are the tools that you need in order to achieve your goal? These might be a notebook, a computer, a budget. You might need to speak to someone, which I'm going to talk about in the next slide. But like I say, if you need any further support or help with this, the last session of my course is called Money Goal Setting. And we go through helping you set your big why, helping you set the plan and put the action steps in place. Step 4 is a super important one. So many people, when they are challenged financially, become quite isolated. But the thing to say is no battle is fought alone. And it was only when I started talking to my creditors that I really started to feel supported. So who is it that you can rely on for emotional support? Is it your family or your friends? But also don't worry if you don't have that friends or family that you can rely on. We went to speak to our bank manager in Barclays in Chiswick, and she was amazing. I've spoken to our creditors, and they are very supportive. There are charities like Step Change or Deadline, which can help you. But also, I'm going to encourage you to look to find an accountability buddy. That is someone who you can work out these action steps with, and they will hold you accountable week by week for taking this action. Step 5 is all about taking action. And in Make Peace with Money, I talk at the beginning about how important commitment is. And what commitment means is to keep taking action, even when things are hard, even when you fall off the wagon, even when you don't believe that things are working. And I am going to encourage you to, whatever you do after this webinar, commit to taking some action to help yourself. Don't rush. Take it one small step at a time. And as I said before, I've talked about this in the Money Mindfulness. Focusing on the wins are just as important as focusing on the money worry. So really make sure you are rewarding yourself, keeping focused on your big why, especially when things get tough. Kindness. There are books written by David Hamilton. I talk about him a lot in the course on how kindness impacts the brain. It is super important that you are kind to yourself, and also you recognize how far you have come. Now, if you want more help in taking action and taking control of your money habits, we do a lot of work on getting clear on your financial situation, putting a budget into place, understanding your costs, whether they're variable or fixed costs. So please come and join me if that would help you. Step 6 is to be adaptable to change. Everything that we are talking about, my whole money journey is all about learning to be adaptable in the face of money stress. The truth is that life never goes to plan. And even if you do make a plan, things will change. And being prepared to change and adapt is one of the most powerful things that you can learn. As I've said before, mistakes happen. I don't believe in self-blame. There is no good or bad. The choice just is. What you might find is that after this webinar, your brain is going to be working on solutions. So I'm going to ask you in the next hour, in the next day, in the next week, to be open to new opportunities, to new ideas and advice. Maybe keep a journal close by so you can write stuff down. And the most important thing is to keep going. So step 7, which is a really important step, is to keep working on those emotions. Even if you think money mindfulness is silly, I encourage you to try it and keep going with it and see, measure how it impacts you. I've given you some affirmations. Affirmations are really powerful at rewiring our brain. So are visualizations, and another tool I use called tapping, which helps to calm that amygdala. What I'm going to offer here is that I have a dealing with money challenges visualization, which I've recorded. If you would like a copy, please get in touch. My email is kim@matsconsulting.com. I'd be very happy to send you that so you can start to do that for yourself. I use Post-its, which I post all around the house with positive messages. I've got ones here: stay in gratitude and do your best. My favorite affirmation is all is well. Everything is happening for my highest good. I am safe. Take time for yourself. Self-care is super, super important. Exercise, any kind of exercise, whether it's walking around the block or going for a run, any kind of meditation, whether it's doing a puzzle, reading a book, listening to music, is super important. It will help you get down into alpha. Get out in nature. It helps your brain relax and start to build that awareness habit, which you can do through journaling. Once again, I'm going to talk about the Make Peace with Money course. We do a lot of work on the emotions. In fact, a lot of the course is around helping you to become aware of where you are stuck, both mentally and emotionally. And so if you need help with this, please do come and join me. Okay, great quote, and a very pertinent quote at the moment is from Winston Churchill. Success is not final. Failure is not fatal. It is the courage to continue that counts. And I would really encourage you, whatever your situation and your challenge, just keep getting up and being courageous and taking action. So if you'd like to do more reading, the Ortners write books on tapping solution. If you'd like to know more about the biology, I talk a lot about the brain. Bruce Lipton, The Biology of Belief. Some oldies and goodies, Norman Vincent Peale, Power of Positive Thinking. Napoleon Hill, Think and Grow Rich. My two favorites at the moment, Dawson Church, Mind to Matter and Bliss Brain. And the book, The Worry Solution, where I have taken that quote from Dr. Martin Rosman. So if you would like to work further with me, I do offer coaching and courses. Some of my clients come to me on a weekly basis. I'm currently doing an intensive monthly coaching option where we do half an hour on a Monday and we decide what we're going to do. And then we do 2 15-minute sessions during the week. And if you're really stuck, this can really powerfully move you forward. If money is an issue, which I know it is for a lot of people, quarterly coaching is part of my money goal setting option. But you can also do my Make Peace with Money program. I'm going to be getting it online in the next couple of months. And I'm also going to be doing it live once a year. So if you would like to know any more about this, please visit my website, which is www.matsconsulting.com. So I hope this has been really, really useful for you, and good luck with everything going forward. Take care. Bye.